he did this out of my sight, but it was at our grandmother's house. And I think I was so obviously upset that he did that, first of all, but that my infant daughter was in my husband's arms when he tried to attack me.
And obviously, was it unprovoked? Like were they arguing?
It was, no, it was, I saw him say, hey, how are you doing? Shook hands. Why don't you come outside? Let's talk. Now, I thought maybe he wants to get to know him, like where he's from. You know, this was his first time with him, you know. Yeah. So I noticed some movement through the kitchen window and then realized what was going on is he was about ready to swing on him. And I knew this was all bad.
Yeah.
So I ran out there, family ran out there. This was a big, dramatic, you know, embarrassing moment. Like even my mother-in-law, that's a whole other story, was there. So I was humiliated, you know, and I was scared.
Yeah.
We just we just loaded up the car and left. But at that point, I knew that I could not continue bringing my kids around him because it wasn't safe anymore.
Right.
But
well,
I
really to put ourselves in that position, right? But it's another thing when we. Yeah, I hear you.
There's something about the baby being there that just something in my mind shifted. Like, oh no, you're not.
Yeah. That's where that's the line, right? For sure. Yeah.
So looking back on that situation, I do have a lot of guilt over that because I pulled away completely from going to see him, and by doing so, I also was forced to stay away from my dad in a way because they lived together. You know?
Right.
I missed out on some things that I wish I would have known going on.
Right. Yeah. Did you tell your dad about that incident?
My dad was there.
Oh, he was.
My dad came to my grandmother's still, so he was there, and all he kept saying is he called me sis because I was the only girl in the family for a long time. I'm so sorry, sis. You know, he felt terrible. It's like, you know, just you got to do what you got to do. It's just not safe. Go ahead and take your kids and go. You know, we'll figure this out. He was just trying to reassure me that things would be okay.
Yeah. That's what dads do.
Yeah.
Right.
They do.
So So do you feel like again people just don't understand how you know, it's the people that are left behind that have to walk around with that stuff. I mean, and it's just, you know, it's heavy. That's a heavy thing to, you know, have to deal with. So, all right. So, I'm just going to lead you this way. And then, so Jen, when we talked, because I know this is difficult, so I'm just going to kind of help you with this. So, you know, Jen, and I, like I said, we talked at length. And so she starts noticing that there's, you know, this happens with her own, you know, direct immediate family with her husband. And she starts, obviously, Jen's starting to get a sixth sense, just like something's not right. Something's just, it's not feeling good about the relationship between her dad and her brother. And so Jen, you want to talk about kind of what led you to decide to go over to your dad's house?
Yeah, so some time had passed there, and actually I do remember my dad bringing up to me he was going to make a will, and I remember thinking, why? I even said, why? What do you know? You're okay, right? He said, yeah, I'm okay, but you know, it's just something we all have to think about one day. And this was like around, I would think, Thanksgiving time that he started talking like that. And some time when he told me, you know, this attorney's going to be calling you, you're going to go in and sign some paperwork because I'm, you know, leaving you in charge of things. And I just kind of thought nothing of it after. I said, oh, it's just something we all have to do. Even though it made me feel kind of weird just thinking about that. And that was like November. Things continued getting really, really bad with the behavior that Matthew was showing. And it was eventually brought to my attention by someone from our small town that he had gone to somebody's house and tried to attack them. It's like waiting outside for them.
Wow.
And they called me, yelling at me, saying, you need to get a hold of your brother. You need to get something done. You. So I did go to my dad's, and I hadn't been there for a while. And when I talked to my brother, I could tell that he was just not there. You know,
Yeah.
it was frightening, really. It was just like the lights were on, but nobody was home almost.
When you get that behind the eyes thing,
Yeah.
and there's no, you know, it's really scary. Super scary.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was eventually able to convince him to go to the doctor. It's not like I wanted to trick him.
Yeah.
But I knew I had to convince him to go one way or another because something was wrong. So I took him into the hospital, try to tell him, let's just get you checked out, make sure you're okay. If you're not feeling good, your stomach's bothering you. Really, I was hoping it would give him an overall, you know, check and it's okay. And they weren't going to keep him at first. And then I did some talking to the lady that originally came in the room and told her, like, hey, something's not right here. Like,
right.
You need to look more into this. Like, he's not himself, sleeping on a wood floor with a sheet. He's gotten rid of all of his personal belongings.
That's what I was going to say. Jen had said that he took his stuff. You could, Jen, say like
Chinatown.
what? Like, yeah,
he took all of his stuff to Chinatown, like iPhones, jewelry, pictures, furniture, brand new furniture, and dumped it out in Chinatown for the homeless people to have. And that was shocking, you know?
Right.
And I knew that's not normal. To me, what it felt like is somebody that was about to not be here.
Yeah.
So they were getting rid of their belongings. So when the lady that I spoke to, I told her that. She came back in the room and spoke with him again. She was asking him some questions. And she asked him, you know, do you hear voices? And he looked at me, and I wasn't really sure if he looked at me like, should I talk to her, or what's it about? Would you set me up? Like, I didn't know what to think.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that looks for. Yeah.
I was just trying to get him help, you know.
Yeah. So
I just told him it's okay. You know, it's okay to talk to her. She's safe to talk to. And he answered her, yes, I do. And she said to him, well, what do they tell you? And he said, they tell me what to do. So obviously at that point, they went ahead and kept him.
Right.
Admitted him. And I went with him upstairs, checked in, and I felt like, okay, we're gonna get some help. It's gonna be okay. I left the hospital that night from Monterey, drove home to Salinas, and by the time I was walking to the front door, my phone was ringing, and it was the hospital. And it was the same nurse. I recognized her voice, and she said, there's been an accident, something happened. And I said, what do you mean? I just left there. And she said, well, your brother wanted to take a shower, so we let him. But he had been in there for quite a while, so I went back in to check on him, found him on the floor unresponsive. I said, what do you mean unresponsive? What does that mean? And she said, well, he's breathing, but he's not responding to anything. Like, it's almost like comatose, he's breathing on his own. So I was just in shock. I had my little ones at home, so my mom went ahead and went to the hospital. And then I went in the morning, but he was taken to a different area of the hospital. They were trying to figure out what happened. Like, did he fall and hit his head again? Was this from the first time he fell? Was something there that they missed?
Yeah.
And they were doing so many, like poking his foot with needles, trying to get him to react to pain or anything. They even did a spinal tap, and there was no physical reaction. And the last test they did, and they did this while we were in the room, the doctor said, I'm going to try this, where we put a strobe light over their head and see if he reacts to it. So they did that, and they turned this light on. And even for myself, I was like, well, that's trippy, like it makes you feel dizzy,
Yeah, yeah.
And within not even 1 minute, he went into a grand mal seizure. And that is the scariest thing to watch.
It does. It almost looks like a possession. Like you would think like that.
It does.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
Yeah.
The muscles just stiffen up, and the jaw. It's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
And I just remember hearing all these things being called out over the intercom, and a bunch of people rushing in to get him and take him down to ICU. And he stayed down there in ICU on full life support, probably a month. And they were telling us at that point that we need to prepare for his passing.
For the worst. Yeah. Wow.
And there I thought, okay, I got my brother back, got him home. Now I'm going to lose him this way. It was just a complete shock. I would, and I was trying to comfort my mom and my dad.
Right.
And I was driving home and falling apart every night with my little one, driving back and forth. And there again, the way the medical staff treated him was very much like he was in the way. There's people more deserving of
annoying. Like he had something better to do. Yeah.
And they weren't going to do anything. They just basically told us he's going to die. So you guys need, start figuring that out, what you're going to do. Well, my mom found a higher up in the hospital that ran things. She found his office.
Okay.
And she went barging in. Mama Bear was going to see what she can do.
Right.
So she was able to, whatever she said in there to them, they decided they would go ahead and send him by ambulance to UC San Francisco for some testing and observation. They had, I guess something up there where they had more doctors that were familiar with this sort of thing. So he went up there, and I think he was there for probably 2 or 3 weeks before he woke up.
Oh, wow.
And my mom and dad were going up daily, and I was staying at home with the kids. So he woke up, and they ended up sending him home after a few days with some prescriptions, and they just called it good. Okay, he's awake. There was never an explanation for, okay, there was a bleed on the brain, or there was this or that. It's just like, okay, he's awake, take him home.
He's good.
So that was
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the end of that.
Wow.
And it was really scary.
Healthcare works for some, but not for all. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it's definitely, you're judged by your appearance for sure.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jen's brother had he'd been in prison, had tattoos. Again, we're not saying that they didn't give him whatever. We're just saying that people are looked at differently when they come in with something. Mitch just went to the doctors a couple of weeks ago, and went there because his back has been really bugging him, and he's interested in certain procedures that they are doing. And so he was asking if they were like going to do x-rays or whatever. And so she said, well, we're not going to give you pain meds. And he was like, pretty sure I didn't ask you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So yeah, there's a deduction that's made, what they call that, involuntary bias or whatever. So yeah, 100%.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So he kind of just stayed at home and stayed indoors.
Yeah.
Dad was just kind of taking care of things there at the house with him. So I think it was 3 months later.
And what year is this one? What year was this? Sorry.
This was the end of 2014.
Okay. Okay.
So going into 2015, yeah.
Okay.
And one day came and I was told that, okay, well, you know, your dad and Matt are going to go on a fishing trip together. My dad bought a new travel trailer. He was like, really wanted to travel the United States. Super proud of it, you know, brand new, saved up, and he couldn't wait to like get out on the road. He had retired and, you know, that's what he wanted to do. So I thought it was kind of strange, like, wow, they're going to go on a 2 or 3 week trip and Matt didn't want to leave the house.
Right.
So, but then I thought, I shouldn't be, you know, making judgment, or, you know, maybe he really is wanting to get my brother out and spend some time together and make their own relationship better.
Yeah.
But I also thought it's kind of weird. My dad didn't call and tell me, like, you know, hey, can you water the grass, or
right.
You know, can you check this or that.
Yeah. Right.
So I just tried not to be the nosy daughter, go on about life, you know.
Right.
And I think it was about 2 weeks later, my brother, I guess, was down at my grandmother's, and my mom went down to have lunch with him. And when she told me that, I thought, wow, that's strange. Like, I said, how did he get there? And she said, well, he drove your dad's truck. And I knew my dad would not.
You're like, yeah.
Let him drive the truck.
Yeah.
But, you know, with the health issues he had and things, like, it wouldn't make sense for him to drive.
Right.
So I didn't feel right about that. But at the end of that night, she said they had a great lunch together. It seemed good. And I asked where my dad was, and I was told he was back at home.
Okay.
So, like, it was probably the next.
I haven't talked to him, so it's weird, but okay.
Yeah. So the next day, I started calling my dad's cell phone number, and no answer. He wouldn't answer. I was texting him, and I said, I wonder if I did something to, like, upset him, because he's not responding to me, and his birthday was coming up too. So I thought, well, I'll go ahead and stop by there and just pop in on him. Hopefully he's not upset with me for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So I stopped by one day. His truck was in the driveway, and I noticed that his travel trailer was parked in front of his house. And I thought, that's kind of odd too, because my dad is, like, very careful with his money, and I knew he paid for storage for that travel trailer.
Okay.
I was surprised he hadn't returned it yet. So I knocked on the door. I heard some movement around in the house, but nobody answered the door. So I went ahead and left. I thought, I'll come back tomorrow. I came back the next day, and after knocking for quite some time, I heard some noise, and my brother answered the door. And I was kind of shocked at his appearance. He didn't have a shirt on. He had his jeans on with a rope tied through the belt loops, holding his pants up. It looks like he'd lost a lot of weight.
And at this time, is he still, I know you had said one time, like, he was, when this kind of started, this kind of demise of his mental capacity, did you say that he was, like, sleeping on the floor with just, like, a sheet? Like, once he gave his shit away, he was just like, okay, all right. So he looks very inept. He doesn't look good.
Right.
Okay.
And I just was kind of shocked at his appearance at the time.
Okay.
And I asked, where's Dad? I said, oh, he's on his walk, which it was normal for him to take a daily walk.
Okay.
He had open heart surgery like a year before, so he was trying to be healthier.
Okay.
So I thought, I'll come back the next day. And I came back the next day, and I was told the very same thing. He's on a walk. And I was like, what are the chances that every time I saw by, he's on a walk? So I went, there's like a Starbucks, little shopping center, like behind where his home was. And I thought, let me just show the people in here his picture and see if they've seen him today. Like maybe he walked over there and was reading his paper like normal. So I showed people there, and one of the girls said, no, you know what? We haven't seen your dad in a long time. And that kind of startled me to think that, like, what do you mean you haven't seen him in a long time?
Right.
He had a routine he stuck to. So I definitely felt something
was up.
Doesn't feel right.
Right.
Yeah. So the next day, I went back to the house again, knocked on the door. Matt answered the door. And his appearance was the same. And this time, I asked for his dad. He said on a walk. So I'm like, there's no way. I asked if I could use the restroom. So I walked through the front door. He said, yes, go ahead. And I walked through the hallway. And when you go through the hallway, you pass the 3 bedrooms. And the first bedroom, Dad used as his office. And I noticed the door was kind of ajar, so I tried to just peek in without making it obvious.
Right.
I noticed he had bought a brand new recliner, and I noticed it was turned over backwards. And a lamp that was broken and busted on the ground. And there were pictures on the ground that were on the wall before. So I knew something had happened, like some sort of physical altercation or something had happened. So I pretty much just went in the restroom, shut the door, and acted like I was using the restroom, turned around, and left. And at that point, I knew I had to call for some sort of welfare check.
Jen, what did you feel like? I mean, when you were doing that, did you get like that immediate, like something is like, not
My
just like
heart,
the little, not like the little signals, but like the blam, like there's something,
yeah.
Something's really
at that
wrong.
point, yeah, at that point, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
now you have every
Yeah.
reason to call and not feel like you're being, calling and being a tattletale.
Right. Right.
Something had to
This
happen.
is your dad. It's not like, yeah.
Right. So,
Right.
I mean, and that was definitely an issue that caused problems even right there within my family, because
Yeah.
it was always like, stay out of it, don't get involved, mind your business. But that is
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got home, and I don't even think I even got out of the call and made the phone call from my car.
Yeah.
I just asked, can you guys do a welfare check? Can't find my dad. I don't know. Do I have to wait a certain amount of days, or you put that on the news or something like, oh, you have to wait 3 days?
Yeah, whatever that 48 hours.
Yeah. Something like that. But they said, no, you don't have to wait. So I was shocked to hear that, but a little relieved too. So they said they would go ahead and go over there and do the welfare check. So this was on a Sunday. I was like, okay, I'm going to get an answer here soon. It was like 4 or 5 in the evening. And I didn't get a call. I figured within the next couple hours I'd get a call.
Right.
Got no phone call. And that evening I was actually getting ready for bed. I think we were actually already laying down. And my phone rang, and it was a county number. And it was 11:55 at night. And I just, like, my blood ran cold, because the county doesn't call you 11:55 on Sunday.
Right.
So when I answered the phone, I know he said he was a sergeant. I don't remember his name. He said, just very matter of fact, cold. Hey, Miss, I'm calling to let you know we found your dad's body, rolled up in, I think he said, a sleeping bag at the time, and shoved under a bed in his travel trailer. And we're arresting your brother for his father's homicide.
So they didn't send someone to talk to you. They called you.
Yeah, they didn't drive the 10 miles it would have taken them to come out here. tell me that. They called me on my cell phone.
This is wrong. Super wrong.
Yeah. And I know I screamed. Like, I don't, because my kids came running out. And they said it was a noise they'll never forget. They said it was something like they've never heard before. So
it's animalistic, because that's really like that's a natural, sound that comes from, that people aren't used to hearing, because those things don't happen often. And that's your core. That's your core. That's your heart, sweetie. That's, that is, oh my God, you poor thing. I can't believe they didn't come. I can't believe they didn't talk to you. I mean, that's not on fixing them, but I just can't. We talked about that before that. That's just so not right. And that's so, if it was a Hollywood star on top of the whatever, they would have been, yeah.
It'd be there. I'm sure they would be. They're comforting them. But it was almost like the guy, almost like he sounded pissed off that he had to,
even make that phone call.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And he just remembered saying, "Ma'am, you need to calm down. Ma'am, you need to calm down. Give the phone to someone else."
That's shocking. That's shocking.
Yeah.
To me. Did they tell you right away that they had arrested your brother, or did they say that also on the phone when that happened?
They said it almost in one sentence. Just found his dad's body, rolled up in a blanket under the mattress in his travel trailer, and we've arrested your brother for the homicide. All in one straight
shot.
Yeah. And at the end of that, I think my stepfather got on the phone for a minute because I was just losing it, and he handed the phone back to me. And the sergeant told me, "Well, you need to come in tomorrow morning at 7 so we can question you and talk to you." And I was like, "Okay." And I said, "Okay, I'll be there. For what?" He said, "Oh, we have to rule out everybody that could have had a financial gain."
Okay.
That shocked me. Like, I
couldn't.
Just
add some insult to the ultimate injury that you have just. Your father was murdered.
Yeah, I mean,
your brother has been accused of it, and now they're saying, "Hey, and you know what?
Gotta clear you too."
You too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. We don't want you to like sit with it for a minute. We need to do what we need to do. So we want you to come in and
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll come to you. We're sure you're distraught. Let us come to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Truth is, I would have went right there in that moment. They would have let me because I wanted answers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right.
Of course, I didn't sleep all night long. I was waiting for that time to roll around so I could go in and find out what happened.
Right.
So when I did go in, they asked me some questions. I was just so distraught. I just remember I even got sick to my stomach and threw up in the garbage can in the interview room. And I guess that was just my nerves and the trauma of hearing all this at once.
Absolutely.
And I was in shock. I was only there a little while, and they were like, you can go ahead and go home. This, obviously has nothing to do with you. Like, we just had to ask you some questions, like, when did you last see him, things like that.
Yeah.
So they said they had my dad's house keys, and they said they would return them to me as soon as they cleared the home as a crime scene.
Okay.
To do their whole routine.
Yeah.
So I was shocked. Actually, the end of the next day, they had already finished at the house, and they called me to come and pick up the keys. And I went and picked them up. And we went back to the house, and everything was odd. The way it looked, the way it smelled, everything
it felt
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It felt so empty.
One of the things
And,
I had read when you sent me the information about this that really struck me was that you had said when you went over there to go the first time to, you know, see where he was on his walk, that you said it didn't smell like him anymore when you walked in the house.
yeah,
And did he have like, did he wear like a certain cologne, like, or something, just his smell? I get that.
he had a very distinct. It wasn't a stinky smell. I don't mean
Yeah,
that. It
yeah,
was
yeah,
his odor. You know what I mean? Like he
yeah,
smelled like,
yeah,
and he also smelled like black coffee and
yeah,
wood
yeah,
shavings from his cabinet make,
yeah,
and all of those were gone. I didn't smell any of those things.
yeah.
I smelled Glade plugins and air freshener, which to this day I
Oh,
can't stand to smell that
yeah,
smell.
yeah.
It really triggers me to even see it in the grocery store
Oh, that's
because
terrible.
they were everywhere in the house.
That's terrible. And you know, that's another thing, right? Is that you're, you know, again, no support. I mean, that's something that I hope that nobody ever has to go through. I mean, my heart literally just goes out for Jen, and her family, because, you know, that's your dad and that's your brother. And um again, you know, that leaves you with, my brother killed my dad. I love my dad and this is devastating, but what do I do with this? Like, how do you do that? I mean, obviously you must have really went in, like, I'm not talking to nobody. And I'm guessing here, we haven't talked about this. So, like, I'm not talking to nobody. I'm not going to communicate with anybody. Um, did the media try to go at you after this? Did you feel like hounded by others? Like, what were you feeling like at that juncture, besides mourning, obviously mourning your dad?
There was some media that came to the house and like tried knocking on the door
Yeah.
and things like that. But what we did was right away put up no trespassing signs.
Okay.
They're not supposed to come on the property once you have that
Oh,
up.
okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so they did try, the local media tried, but I absolutely shut down. And you're right, I didn't. Once again, I shut down and I didn't leave. I didn't leave for much of anything unless I was forced to for 3 to 4 years.
Wow. Man,
After that.
That's that's devastating.
And
And
yeah,
you're mourning at the same time as you're going through your own stuff,
right.
to double,
Yeah,
you know, make that really, I'm sorry.
I know. I was just, and I didn't know a cause of death or how, you know what I mean, what happened. So that was torture, just waiting, because I was told, you know, you're going to have to wait for an autopsy. And we don't, you know, have anyone here that can do it right now. We only have one coroner working for 3 different counties. It took like, I think 10 days before there was ever an autopsy done.
And, you know, Jen and I talked about this too, is that, you know, when something like this happens to a loved one, this sounds morbid, but for most of us that I've talked to, is we have this innate, we want to know why. Like, it's not, we know that they're not here. We get that, but we really want to know what exactly, because I feel like it's going to give us some kind of, not closure, but it gives us information, which I think it makes it easier to process through. That's why people ask for things like autopsy reports. That's why people ask for things like, I want to see one, because I don't think our human psyche can really wrap around the fact. I mean, Jen, most people can't even wrap their head around the fact that of a passing of anyone in their family, let alone with something as tragic as this. So it makes you have the need for more information, because you just want to be able to make some kind of sense where really there's no sense to be made, but it helps.
Right. Yeah. And
10
that's
days,
exactly.
that's insane. That's crazy.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was asking him. Are you kidding me? 10 days? How is that even possible? Like, you know, and I was just told, you have to wait. You have to wait. And I remember where I was at, where I was driving. I had to pick up my kids, or I wouldn't have left the house. I was driving to pick them up from school, and my phone rang. I was driving, but I answered. Of course, I recognized the county number, and it was a person at the coroner's office saying, "Okay, well, we've completed the autopsy. Your father's cause of death is due to a broken neck. His neck was broken. He was beaten to death." And that shocked me. I thought they were going to say it was something quick. Like, I thought he was probably shot.
Right. That's super. Again, I'm going to interject here because I know this is really hard for Jen for obvious reasons. It's hard for me to hear it. Like, I have the same reaction that I did when Jen and I first talked about this. And, you know, the thing is that Jen found out later that, and again, I'm just speaking for her because I know this is difficult for her to say, is that, you know, they found her dad in what they said, a fetal position. He was bound. And unfortunately, and this is another episode of our, you know, lovely governmental systems, Jen actually had to end up going in there to the trailer. Did I say that right, Jen?
Yeah.
And she had to clean up basically what they left over from the crime scene. She found dead maggots. I mean, that's what no one should be left with that image in their heart and in their head. No family member should be left with that. But you know, they go in and do what they do, and then you think it's okay, like you think it's okay to go in there when it's really not. Okay, so I know for Jen that was super devastating to her.
Yeah.
And I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, that is an image that is going to be burned into her brain and her heart.
Yeah. It definitely is. And I was shocked I was shocked at what I walked into and saw, and the amount of the dead insects, maggots,
blood, and dried blood, and that when they say they clean it up, that's a natural thing to think that that's what they did, but really they just take their evidence that they need and and they don't, and that's why they have places that, you know, but what I think a lot of people don't realize is sometimes families actually have to call those places, which I had no clue, no idea that people had to do that. And you're like the third person I've talked to that have lost their family members, not just something that has horrific years, just of things. And same thing, they were like, oh yeah, well I went in there. I'm like, you know, it's actually a hazard also. I mean, so like you should not, you shouldn't have to do that. So did you see, obviously your brother he went to prison. Have you communicated with your brother? What year? I'm sorry, this is 2015 or 2014?
This was February 2015.
Okay. Did you have communication with your brother after the fact, after this happened?
Not for probably 2 years, 2.5.
No letters, no phone calls, no nothing?
No, nothing. You know, it's it's crazy because a lot of what you do, like after something traumatic like this, you don't consciously make decisions. Like either your body or your mind does it for you, and it sounds really messed up saying this, but part of me just had to think that they both had passed away. Like I lost both of them, and that's how my mind was trying to cope with it.
Right.
That's not a conscious effort I made, but sometimes in my mind that
Our
was
subconscious does things to protect ourselves. 100%.
Yeah.
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 So that I just and that probably in the long run, I mean, didn't do me any justice, because once I did end up receiving a letter, it felt like such a shock to see my brother's handwriting, and
Right.
I felt like, wait, I already closed that chapter, like,
Right. Right.
and but I knew at the same time, like, okay, he is alive. I have to deal with this, even though I had family members that were really pissed off at me to even consider having something to do with him or speak to him. And then I had family members pissed off at me for not diving in and being his full support from the beginning. Everybody had an opinion as to how I should,
Yeah.
but nobody was willing to help me
Right.
get there.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever communicate about what happened with your brother? Did you guys ever talk about it?
We didn't communicate about it. The only thing, I had received a letter, and he did apologize to me. He didn't detail,
Right.
Obviously I know what he's apologizing for.
Right. Right.
So he apologized for the pain he had caused and for putting me through whatever had happened. And he said something like, I hope one day you can find it in you to forgive me.
What was that? Did you have to process that for a while before you made the decision to go see him? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure that wouldn't be an overnight thing, like for most. Like obviously you had to like really, reach down,
Right.
pray.
Yeah, I had to process it for a while, and then it just so happened that another incident happened with my brother, that he was transferred from a prison that was far away to a prison that was pretty much in our hometown. And I knew that was probably my only opportunity to see him.
So I'm gonna just give the generic version. So her Jen's brother was allegedly they say that the prison said that he allegedly killed his cellmate, and he was there for a while. Again, this is all alleged. That he was there for a couple of days. The stink started getting super bad. They found his cellmate not alive anymore. And her brother claims at this point that it was not him. That's kind of his stance. So we're just going to put that out there that way. So we're now 3. 2 that we know for sure, 1 accusation. After that episode, Jen makes the decision to go see him, because she got a phone call of the incident. So Jen makes the decision to go see him. What was that like for you when you went to go see your brother? What was that like?
Oh gosh, I don't think I slept for like 2 nights building up to that day. Just the anxiety of not knowing how I was going to react
Yeah.
or respond, or how he was going to respond to me. Because,
Right.
you know, you got to think too, during all of this long mess during the trial and everything, they tried to subpoena me to testify against him. There was nothing to testify other than.
I actually forgot about that. I didn't even think about the whole trial afterwards. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So me thinking, oh my gosh, like he knows they subpoenaed me. There's just this awkward, like, I don't know how, you know what I mean? How to
I think
respond.
they should have the same thing with, I don't even know if they have this anymore, but I feel like they should have the same things with family members, that you shouldn't have to testify against a family member, husband, wife, because we know the things they like to threaten people with. So yeah, I get you.
Yeah. And you know, just to touch on that, like what you said, to threaten, make us feel threatened. When I wasn't allowed in any of the hearings or anything that was going on because of the fact that I was a subpoenaed witness.
You were like a material, right.
And they were trying to get him to take a deal, and then it was looking like he wanted to take it to trial. And come the last day, it's like they told him, you need to make a decision today. And they brought me in. They told me I had to show up to court because they were going to supposedly make me testify, right?
Right.
This still gets me.
Yeah.
Sat my mother and my aunt on one side of the court, and they sat me by myself on the other, with the DA, a lady that was supposed to be there to comfort me, I guess, or help me through things, but she didn't even speak to me. And while I was waiting there, the assistant DA handed me a piece of paper, and she goes, "Oh, you might want to read this." And this is the first time I had been shown any paperwork about my dad's condition. And I read it right there in the courtroom while they were discussing this plea deal, and where it mentioned his neck being broke, the way his body was shoved under this bed, and it mentioned that he had several broken ribs also, and I didn't know any of that. It mentioned the type of insects and the degree of things, and they gave this to me in a courtroom filled with people to read.
So that's the first time you had seen that?
Yeah.
Terrible.
Luckily,
that's what they do. That's how they
Oh yeah.
They do. Yeah.
That shock factor, I think they were.
For sure.
Thank you.
Did you how much time did they give him for that?
22 years. What they ended up charging him with, they would have, what I was told is they wanted to go for first degree murder. But because of the fact my father's body was so decomposed from being gone for at least 10 days, they said.
Right.
And due to the heat and different things.
Elements. Yeah,
that it was almost impossible they know his neck was broke, but they don't know how. So the way they explained it to me was, if they could prove that he was strangled and his neck was broke when that happened, they could go for first degree murder, because it takes several minutes to strangle somebody until they die. But since they could not prove that because of the decomposition, they had to go for a lesser charge, which was voluntary manslaughter, which would have been an 11-year sentence, but because of my brother's previous strikes, it doubled that time and made it 22 years.
Wow. That's really something.
Yeah.
So how is your relationship now with your brother? What's that like now?
Well, it's a work in progress.
Right.
I'm really trying super hard at this point in my life to live my life with compassion, because that's not something a lot of people have, especially people that have done something really terrible, you know. or people that have been through something terrible. Not everyone can show that empathy you need so badly.
Right.
And,
Right. And you've lost, and the way I look at it is you like you almost said at the middle, like just a little bit ago, that when you get to the point you're like, okay, my dad is gone, and I'm just gonna look at like my brother's the same way, because that's the only way.
yeah,
Again, you didn't plan it out that way. That's just our psyche works.
right.
So, I sometimes I feel like what they say, like being compassionate is a noun, not a verb. It's an action, right? So
Yes.
if you are making a conscious decision to
Yes.
to be compassionate, which gets us there. That's what gets us
Right.
there, right? It may not come
Yeah.
naturally and it may not come automatic, but if you put
Yeah.
yourself that way, and I'm sure people have come at you from all kinds of different angles. How can you do that? He killed your father. How can you do that? He, attempted to kill your stepfather. He is a murderer. He is a killer. He's a whatever. I'm
Yeah.
sure you've been hit
Yeah.
all of that. But the bottom line,
Right.
and again, this comes back to what Jen and I initially talked about. The reason why she did this and the reason why I wanted to do this was because not for the sensationalism, even though we know that's where we're not denying the fact that that's what gets people here. But again,
Sure.
almost the same thing with compassion, right? Whatever's going to
Yes.
get you there. I mean, and
Yeah.
then what really the important piece is that, um, you know what? We, I just want to tell you, I just have this complete love for you and just a real place in my heart for you. And you've been through so much, and you are still an amazing woman. And your heart is big, and it's uh, and you are just when you feel like you don't have something, you have so much, and you are not, that saying, I'm not my brother's keeper. We are, but we're not. I mean, and I think at
Yeah.
different points in life, you are not responsible for that. You are not responsible for any of those actions. Hindsight's 2020. If anything, don't, for people that are watching this. I mean, Jen's a beautiful woman, and she has. When you look at her from the outside, you'd be like, yeah, you know what? She's got it together. She's good. And look at me, like I got no makeup on, whatever. Same. She looks a mess. I mean, so the thing is that we're all in this walk of life, and what you might not always see on the outside is not representative of what's on the inside, and that we should be here. Again, this is not just for women, this is for men too, that we're at a place that you, as adults, we're adults, and
Yeah.
we should be able to have people to lean on, to talk about these. I cannot tell you, Jen, how many people, and I'm sure this is going to become even greater after this. I have so many women and men reach out to me. Obviously, we have a lot with Mitch, but reach out to me being like, you know what, like, what drew me to this was, that this actually goes to the other side of it. We see all these sensational stories all the time, but there's no after. There's no like, it's like, okay, this is what happened. Oh my God, it's so crazy. And then that's it. As you can see with Jen's story, there's a lot more to it than that's just it.
Right.
So I think what I'd like to see from this is that I'm going to try to convince Jen to do a live, and after we put this up, maybe like a week later, and to ask what people want to ask. But I think it's important to keep this conversation going because it doesn't go away, and it's not something that doesn't happen. Jen's situation is unique. Um, uh, it's very unique, and I just want to make sure that you feel supported, and I love you for doing this, and I know it wasn't easy, and I just really commend you, and I just want to thank you so much for everything, because I know this
I
wasn't
just,
easy.
I just love you, and
Oh,
thank you for making me feel safe. You know, I've never opened up
you're welcome.
public the fear of what people think. You know, I felt safe with you, and that for someone like me, that means a lot.
We really appreciate that. And I just felt like, you know, I know you're shy, and I'm not. And I just wanted you to give you the space to be able to talk and to speak when you felt like you couldn't. And I just, you're strong, and I know you don't always feel like that, but you are. And we're all, you know, another thing that's, I think, important to close this out with is that God plays a big part in Jen's life, and he plays a big part in mine. I really, everything that Mitch and I have from him being out, um, my children, my grandkids, I give that all to God. My church, uh, Jen has come back kind of to her church, and that plays a part in her life. And I think it plays a part in her strength. So would you agree, Jen?
Absolutely. If I did not have, if I did not have God, I guarantee you I would not be here right now.
Right.
And I came very close to that several times, and I'm glad that God saw me through.
Yeah.
My kids need me too.
Right. We do.
And I don't ever want them to feel it.
Right. And I think that's, you know, that's an important thing that we can give our kids, is that, when Jen and I were young, when we went to church, it was very much like, we knew the power of God, but we didn't, it was more like the fire and brimstone, right? If you're going to do this, this is what's going to happen. And so as I've gotten older and got to know more, is I feel like even in this pandemic, even in like all of this, like I know that God has a plan. And even when I felt like this is not going to get any better, like this really, again, we, as strong women, when we don't always feel so strong, we are still putting one foot in front of the other, right? And we're just doing what we need to do. But I think with God being with that, we have that extra, we have that foundation to stand on and not just put one foot in front of the other. So anyways, I just thank you. I love you, Jen. And we will definitely have, like I said, she's shy, but we'll do this. So I think that we can do, we'll do a live, like maybe in a couple of weeks, just to get feedback, because I know there's going to be a lot. But I just want people to know out there, if you have a situation that you feel that you need some support with or help, and you think I would help you with that, I'm all about it. Hey, I need it. Jen's helped me. So I always get this when I feel like this is a two-way street. I talk to Lex all the time. Lex and I communicate, and we text and we talk. Isabel and I talk. I talk to, guys too. So I just feel like I want people to feel like they have someone. And that's as much as I don't like being on texting and on the internet and whatever, I think this is one beautiful thing that can come out of this. So I definitely want to take you to lunch, and we don't live that far from each other. So I would definitely love you in person. And I just love you, and I just want to thank you for doing this. I really do.
Thank you for talking to me and encouraging me.
You're welcome, sweetie. Okay, guys. So we'll talk to you guys soon. And thanks for watching.